Welcome to the Self-Growth Nerds podcast. I'm your host, Marie, a courage coach, creative soul, and adventure seeker. Since through hiking the Pacific Crest Trail in 2019, I'm on a mission to help you embrace your most confident self so you can achieve your dreams too. If you're eager for deep conversations, big questions, and meaningful connections, join me on the quest to discovering how we can create a more magical and memorable life. Hello, nerds. How are you? I'm really good. I want to talk about time management today and give you some tough love. But you're going to thank me for it. Don't worry. So, I often hear people tell me, I don't have time to read. I don't have time for myself. I don't really have time for my projects. I'd love to write a book someday. When I have time, I will. When I have time to train for a thru hike, I will. But do you hear how passive this sounds? The truth is that you will never have time for yourself or your dreams unless you make time for them. So pull your head out of the sand right now and realize that when you tell yourself you don't have time, what you're really saying is this is not that important for me right now. I'm not saying it's not important to you, but I'm saying there's something else that comes first right now. So you have to be honest with yourself and decide between these two options. Option number one, you can own the fact that this is not a priority for you in this moment, and that's okay. Maybe your career is more important than your family right now. That's okay. Maybe your taking care of your family is more important than taking care of your health, and that's also okay. You just want to make sure that you are proud of your reasons and not just falling into people-pleasing or poor organization. So what I mean by that, I'll give you a few examples, is do you not read because you decide to focus on playing with your kids or because you're unable to set boundaries? And when you're not playing with them, you're scrolling on your phone. Another example would be, let's say you decide to put your career first and decide that right now taking care of your physical health is not a priority. Just make sure that this does not happen because you spend your whole day at work being a perfectionist, spending too much time on details that don't matter, and you're not able to tell your manager that you're leaving at the time you said you were leaving because you want to please them. These are not reasons that I think you will be proud of, and I want you to be honest with yourself about what's going on. It's okay to say, you know what, in this season, I'm going to spend all of my free time working on my business and none of my free time working out. And that's okay. I own that. This is important to me in this season of my life. So that's option one. Owning what you are going to spend time on and what you're not going to spend time on. Option number two is just deciding to make a change. Saying, you know what? Yes, I want to focus on my career, but it's also a non-negotiable for me to work out. That's just an example, right? There's no right or wrong. It's different for everyone. But whatever it is that you have been setting aside, you can either decide consciously, and that's the key word, consciously. You can decide that that's not what you're focused on right now, or you can say, look, we gotta shift my priorities around. I gotta let go of perfectionism. I gotta set firmer boundaries because this is important to me and I want to make space for it in my schedule. Okay? No one's gonna do that for you. But I want you to choose either option one or option two and not hang out in the blurry, passive middle. There's an amazing movie on Prime that's called Anything's Possible, about a trans woman who falls in love and her partner says, don't be a perpetual passive pussy. The triple P's, and I thought that was hilarious. I don't want you to hang out in the blurry passive middle where you're in denial when you let life happen to you. Self-deception and indecision will suck your soul dry. You gotta make an active choice. No, I'm not going to read in the next few months. Or, yes, actually, I do want to make reading one of my priorities, and let's figure out how. Now, you may have tried that before, and your willpower was not enough. Very often, willpower is not enough, and that's completely normal. Nothing to shame yourself over, okay? That's happened to all of us where we think, okay, no, now think about New Year's resolution. Okay, now I'm going to read one book a week, and then it doesn't happen, and you think, I really wanted it. And you beat yourself up because you think it's your fault. You make it mean that you didn't want it enough. But that is not the case. What's going on is that there is a grain of sand in the cogs of your machine, so to speak. And that grain of sand is very often a thought, a belief that you have either about yourself or about what it is that you want to do. The first step here is not to try and change your actions, to be like, okay, no, I'm gonna journal every day, and what's gonna help me is to put my journal next to the coffee machine. Sure, these little things can help, but changing your actions only go so far. We want to go deeper and look at what's going on in your mind. So yeah, first step is looking at the belief that's slowing you down, that's making you give up or not show up at all, okay? I'm going to give you a few examples. Let's say you have an idea for a project and you plan time in your schedule to work on that project but never get around to it. Maybe you unconsciously believe that it's never going to work anyway, so why invest any time in that? That's why it's so important to gain awareness. What's the little part of you that's like causing resistance? Okay, yeah, there's a part of me, I hear part of me say, it's not gonna work. Look, you've tried before and it's never worked. Why would it work this time? Just realize. And there's this thing I told you about in the past called metacognition. Metacognition is a skill that we're the only mammals to have. We're able to look at our thoughts. So just look at the thought that's getting in the way. Get curious. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, there's a part of me that just thinks it's never going to work. Of course I haven't been putting time. If there's a part of me that thinks that. Another belief that might get in the way is it has to be done perfectly. I see that a lot with people who want to join my coaching program, Brave and Bold, and they say, well, I'm not going to join now because if I join, I have to show up to every coaching call. But that's not possible because, we all have a life, and that's a dangerous belief because it's so much better to show up 50% of the time than 0% of the time. But we think, if I cannot be there 100%, I'd rather go for 0%. Do you see how malicious that is? Like, I'm going to give you two other examples. Let's say you want to do 21 days of meditation. That's what I'm doing right now, a challenge, 21 days of meditation. I could have approached it thinking like, if I do this, I need to do it perfectly. I have to wake up every morning and that has to be the first thing I do every morning. Otherwise, it's not worth it. And so you either don't do it at all or you start doing it. And when you skip a day, you just give up the whole thing. But let me tell you, I have skipped days here and there and I just start again the next day. like nothing happened. Like it was just a blip in the universe. And that's okay. I see a lot of people with ADHD slow themselves down because they think, if I'm going to do this, it has to be done perfectly. And by perfectly, they mean, if I'm going to do this, it has to be done the neurotypical way. I had a client who wanted to write a blog and promote the blog 3 times a week on Instagram. She said, I need to be consistent. I need to talk about it three days a week. But this pressure is unnecessary. And what happens when you put this much pressure on yourself is you're more likely to give up. You're more likely to feel like shit when you show up once in a week, to make it mean that you're not good enough and to stop doing what you were doing. So check yourself for the belief that it has to be done a certain way. It doesn't. This is also what professionalism it does to us. Oh, if I'm going to do this, it has to be professional. It has to be neat and clean. Otherwise, what's the point? That is also fucked up, for lack of a more refined word. We have this belief like, oh, this is how a good adult should be. A good adult should be, and I remember one of my clients saying that, well, journaling should be simple for me. Like a good adult should be able to just sit down at their desk for half an hour and write, but I can't. And so they would hit themselves on the head. So notice, and my last example, so the first 2 were, it's never going to work and it has to be done perfectly. And my third example is, there's no point. No one really cares. This doesn't matter. Okay? You might have a little part of you, a little voice inside of you that says, when you're about to sit down and maybe write your book, part of you that says, there is no point. No one's going to read it. This doesn't matter. And of course, that's going to create a heaviness that's not going to make you want to sit and write. I remember speaking with someone who wanted to get into drawing. Drawing was not their job. They just wanted to do it because it was fun. And they wanted to share their drawings on Instagram. But they said to me, what's the point? Like, no one cares. Just like if you enjoy sharing pictures of your food on Instagram, part of you might think, well, no one cares. But that leads me to step 2. Once you've gained awareness of the belief that slows you down, step 2 is poking holes in that belief, questioning that belief. Is it really true? Is it really true? Or is that just like a belief that I've been given by someone else, or that I have held on to because it has protected me in the past? Do I still want to believe this? In what ways is this belief completely false? I'll just take the example of sharing pictures of your dinners online. Yeah, sure, some people are not going to care, but some people are going to be inspired by that. I met someone who discovered a passion for cooking during COVID, and they shared everything that they cooked, they shared on Instagram. And so many people told them like, oh, this was so inspiring. You gave me ideas of what to cook. You never know how just being yourself and sharing what lights you up with the world will impact others. You don't know if sharing your drawings on Instagram is going to motivate someone to start drawing again, and they're going to find so much joy from that. And if we go to the belief that everything has to be done perfectly, are you sure that's true? Because I know a bunch of people. I'm thinking of 2 of the coaches that I've had who have very successful businesses. One of them has ADHD and the other one has depression and chronic illness. And to me, they are badasses. They do things their way and they give me permission to do things my way. They redefine what professionalism looks like. They redefine what's possible. They tell everyone who are like them, everyone who are different and do not align with the bro way of doing marketing or business, that it's okay, that you can just be your weird self and achieve so much more than you think. Is it true that it's better to do 0 days of meditation than to do 14 days out of the 21? Of course not. Of course it's better to show up half the time than not at all. And lastly, the crap belief that it's not going to work. Are you sure that that's true? Because you cannot be sure as long as you have not tried. And even when you have tried once, twice, 3 times, maybe you haven't tried the right way. Maybe you've just figured out a bunch of ways to do it wrong on your way to getting it right. And that's quoting Seth Godin. He said something like, you have to learn how to get it wrong on your way to getting it right. Don't be self-righteous and tell me and tell yourself, oh no, I know things and I know that this is not going to work. You don't. Just open yourself up to the possibility. Open yourself up to the idea that you might actually surprise yourself. There's, I don't know her name, someone who created a project called like 100 Days of Rejection or something like this. She was super afraid of being rejected. And so she decided, okay, well, I'm going to be rejected 100 times. And so that's going to strengthen my tolerance to rejection. So she made like a list of 100 things that she wanted to do, or I think she was an illustrator. So let's say, for example, she wanted to illustrate for the New York Times. And so she made a list of all the things that she would dream of doing, but thought she would probably be rejected for it. She probably thought, oh, it's too good to be true. And then she approached every item on the list one at a time. And I think after like 25 items, she was accepted. People said yes about 3 times. So she was like, oh my God, my whole goal was to get rejected 100 times, but it's not working. Just because she put herself out there. So, I'm going to summarize. You first have to be honest about how you spend your time, to be conscious about what you make space for or not. And then when you decide what you want to prioritize, you got to look, that's step 1, you got to look at the thoughts or the beliefs that might get in the way. Step 2 is you got to poke holes in those beliefs. Okay? You have to wear the hat of the defense attorney. That's actually, this doesn't make sense. Here's 10 reasons why it doesn't. And once you have this level of awareness, it's going to be so much easier to actually take action, to actually set boundaries, to actually respect the time blocks that you have put in your schedule. Because you have removed or at least gained awareness about the obstacles that got in the way of you showing up for yourself and your dreams. And it is a surface solution to try and organize your environment differently. Yes, methods like the Pomodoro method are amazing. But you don't want to underestimate the importance of looking at the beliefs that are slowing you down, okay? I do that all the time with my clients, and this is where the gold is. This is where the long-lasting change is, when you are able to reframe how you see yourself and how you see the world. So that's it for this week. The title of this episode was more of a clickbait. You don't really suck at time management. You just need to get better at being aware of the intrusive thoughts that get in the way of your dreams. And it's a practice. I'm not perfect, but we can all together work on becoming more conscious. Okay, have a beautiful week. I love you all, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. You just listened to the Self-Growth Nerds podcast. Make sure to subscribe and to find me on Instagram at Self-Growth Nerds. If you want individual help developing the confidence to create a more meaningful and exciting life, visit selfgrowthnerds.com today to learn how. Finally, I want to thank my friend Etienne Galano for editing this, and I want to thank you, kind-hearted souls, for growing into your truest, most courageous selves every day and making this world a better, more beautiful place. My name is Marie, and I will talk to you next week.